Have you ever looked at a massive urban development and thought, wait, who's actually getting the better end of the deal here? Well, today, we're unpacking a project so unbelievably massive, it is literally going to redraw the map of Hanoi. We're talking about the Red River Mega Project, specifically the Landscape Avenue Access. Now, it's incredibly easy to look at a project of this scale and immediately fall into binary thinking, right? Assuming someone is either getting a massive windfall or just getting completely scammed. But as we'll see in this explainer, the reality is a lot more nuanced. It's this fascinating, highly intricate dance of interest between three main players: the state, private enterprises, and everyday citizens.
To really wrap our heads around the gravity of this, we have to start with the sheer mind-boggling scale of the investment. 855 trillion Vietnamese dong. That's the estimated total investment required to actually bring this vision to life. I mean, a number so large it's almost hard to process. We aren't just talking about pouring some concrete and paving a few roads here. We are talking about fundamentally altering the entire economic and physical landscape of the capital city. But beyond those dizzying financials, there's a very real, very human element at the center of all this. 200,000 citizens. That is the estimated number of people whose daily lives, their homes, their futures, will be directly impacted by this infrastructure. When you're moving or reshaping the environments of a population that's basically the size of a small city, well, the stakes are absolutely incredibly high. Which brings us to the ultimate question we are unpacking today. Who truly benefits? To answer this objectively, based purely on the documented plans, we really have to throw out those black and white assumptions. We need to look at the hard data, the actual proposals on the table, and historical precedents to see exactly how this massive pie is actually being sliced.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. First, the Red River Mega Project overview. Second, what citizens get. Third, corporate risks. Fourth, the state as referee. And finally, sharing the benefits.
Moving right into Section 1, what do citizens actually get out of this? If this project is executed strictly under state supervision, residents currently living in the planning zone are looking at some seriously life-changing upgrades. Right now, the areas outside the Red River dikes are home to many semi-legal settlements. And honestly, the infrastructure is lacking. We're talking unstable water, spotty electricity, and a constant, looming threat of landslides and flooding. This project promises to completely eliminate those infrastructure gaps. By building a synchronized system of dikes, current stabilization, and collecting roads, the physical safety of these communities is finally secured. These are monumental safety and infrastructure upgrades that citizens simply could not achieve on their own. So the crucial point is how this plays out for the two different groups of affected citizens. Let's look at those who stay first. For the households not cleared but sitting right on the project boundaries, their property values are going to absolutely skyrocket. What was once considered fringe wasteland will literally become the frontage of the most bustling landscape avenue in the capital. And what about those who are required to relocate? Well, they aren't being pushed out to the remote suburbs. They're slated for high-end, in-place resettlement. Specifically, the Enterprise Consortium, which is made up of Dai Quang Men, Taco, and Huapat, has proposed building 4 completely new urban resettlement areas. We're talking 113.5 hectares. This means relocated citizens will get modern, high-rise urban living spaces, complete with parks and synchronized infrastructure, right inside the original project zone. It's a massive, massive step up in living standards. All right, Section 2, corporate risks. We need to address some valid fears here. Because, of course, corporations aren't doing this for charity, right? Now, what's really interesting about this next part is a concept called the land rent difference. The core economic engine driving this whole consortium is exactly that. Historically, with these build-transfer models, there's always a valid public concern. Sometimes investors build expensive roads, but in return, they receive prime, golden land at incredibly cheap valuations. The risk here is all about that delta, the massive profit potential when cheap, undeveloped land is magically converted into highly valuable urban infrastructure. For this specific project, the investor consortium has proposed exchanging the infrastructure build for 12 reciprocal land plots totaling over 5,000 hectares. And let's be clear, this isn't just any land. We are talking about highly prime real estate in districts like Long Bien and Bao Day. If the state's valuation of this reciprocal land doesn't perfectly match true market rates, the consortium could make astronomical profits selling commercial apartments, while the infrastructure they give back to the public might not actually match the true value of the land they received. Furthermore, there's a huge mechanical risk regarding time. The consortium is currently pushing the city to accelerate site clearance into a very tight window of just a few months. When you apply that kind of immense pressure on local authorities, well, mistakes happen. Actually, it's almost guaranteed. If they rush, they might apply incorrect or unfair compensation frameworks. And this chain reaction ultimately leads to citizens suffering serious financial disadvantages and triggers a wave of lengthy, painful lawsuits.
Which brings us to Section 3, the state as referee, balancing the scales.
You see, the government isn't just a participant here. It has to actively balance the drive for corporate profit with the absolute protection of citizen welfare. Recognizing the risks we just talked about, the government and Hanoi's leadership have laid down a core principle. The state leads the compensation. The companies in the consortium cannot simply go door to door negotiating directly to pressure citizens into cheap payouts. Every single step of compensation and resettlement must strictly adhere to legal pricing frameworks, all under the tight, watchful eyes of state inspection agencies.
And this brilliantly illustrates the state acting as that protective referee in real time. Initially, the project was mapped out to pass through 19 wards, but recently the Hanoi People's Council approved an adjustment, shrinking the scope down to 16 wards. Why? To intentionally bypass densely populated residential areas in Vinh Thuy, Hoang Mai, and Vinh Hung. This proves there's a deliberate, calculated effort to minimize the disruption to citizens' lives in areas where the infrastructure is already stable.
Now for Section 4, sharing the benefits, the balanced pie. Let's move on and see how this all builds together. We have citizens needing safety, corporations needing profit, and the state needing a revolutionized city. Ultimately, a successful megaproject requires this perfectly balanced pie. The state gets modern infrastructure. The enterprises get a reasonable capped profit margin for taking on massive upfront capital and construction risk, and the citizens get better living conditions, equal to or better than what they had before. If any one of these slices gets too big, the whole project just loses its integrity entirely. But keeping this pie perfectly sliced hinges entirely on one single factor: transparency. For the citizens not to lose out, and for the enterprises not to take too large a slice, the government's valuation of that 5,000 hectares of reciprocal land, the land given to Dai Quang Minh, Taco, and Hua Phat, absolutely must be flawlessly transparent and strictly aligned with real market values.
So what does this all mean for us? The opportunity to revolutionize Hanoi's landscape is right there, mapped out in brilliant detail. The benefits to the citizens are tangible, the corporate mechanisms are clear, and the state's vital role is defined. But as the clock ticks on the site clearance and land handovers, the ultimate success of this megaproject rests on a knife's edge. It leaves us all asking, exactly what steps will the city take in these crucial coming months to guarantee that the land valuation remains truly transparent? It's a fascinating, multi-billion-dollar question, and one we will be watching very, very closely.